Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Utter Politics with Joe Willoughby and me, Alex, on Politics. And today we are joined by the leader of the Forward Party and Clacton by-election candidate, Adham Alkhatip. How are you doing today?
Hello. Hello, Joe Willoughby and Alex. It's very nice to see you guys. I'm Adham, leader of the Forward Party, and yes, I am running in the Clacton by-election. I'm quite happy to be on this podcast.
Thank you very much for joining us. So my first question for you is basically just tell us your story of how you got into politics, running in these elections, and what inspired you to do this.
How I got into politics. All right. I'll summarize the history very quickly of when I first wanted to enter politics. 2024, that's the first time I remember sort of wanting to become an MP, like the idea, right? Wanting to become an MP because at the time I was a very social person. I believed that as an MP, I would do a very good job at it. You know, I'm an excellent communicator and I'd help the community, right? And over time, this wanting to become an MP evolved into wanting to start my own party because I don't think the settlement that we have right now with the mainstream parties is adequate for the British people, right? And fun fact, in 2024, I was quite close to registering the party under a different name. I was initially going to name it Equity. I'm glad I didn't do that because it's an all right name, but it doesn't have as much appeal as Forward. So due to personal circumstances, I delayed registering the party. And then November 2025, I opened my TikTok account. I began campaigning to run for mayor of Tower Hamlets because that's the area that I was in at the time as a student at Queen Mary's. Make TikToks. March, I register my party. I don't end up running for mayor of Tower Hamlets because I didn't have the £500 deposit. I do end up running for councillor of Bethnal Green East, and I came out with around 12 votes because I decided to instead focus on the party brand growth rather than the local election. And I think that paid off, right? We've got free membership for UK voters. We've got over 1,300 members now, top 22 in the UK by membership. I've got around a little over 190,000 followers. So I think I made the right decision then. So to conclude, 2024, that's when I first wanted to go into politics. 2025, made my account. 2026, registered the party, and now we're here. And now I'm running in Clacton.
Fair enough. So it sounds like a pretty rollercoaster story for the last few years. Was there any
quite a quick story?
Was there any inspiration from any politicians, any other influencers that sort of guided you to make these decisions to go and run for that MP, to get proper into politics and start your own party, or was it completely like you thought that this would be a good idea on your own?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's a particular person that inspired me. Of course, there are figures I can point to that serve as good examples, although not perfect examples. But I wouldn't say it was like, oh, I saw this one politician and they made me want to go into politics. I can't quite remember who inspired me in specific, right? It was more of a cumulative thing.
Okay, so is it just like in 2014 you were getting into politics, reading about it, and you decided, hang on, I want to make the difference. So it wasn't anything there wasn't a ta-da moment where you thought, hang on, this is what I've got to do.
It wasn't really a ta-da moment. If I can recall correctly, it was up until about year 8. So about what age? I was like 14 or 15, right? Up until in year 8 and year 9, I was sort of just a normal kid. I had one best friend. I wasn't really a popular kid or whatever, right? Year 10 onwards, I became more popular. I had more closer friends. I'd have more nuanced, thoughtful conversations with. So year 10 onwards, that's when I became more sort of critically thinking in life. And then year 12, I'd say that's when my political persona developed as part of this program that I did, right? It was a free program. I visited the Birmingham City Council and I went on an Oxford residential, right? And I think around year 12, that's when I developed my proper political persona, always wanting to wear the suit, being proper interested in politics. I wouldn't say it's a flashpoint. I'd say it's more of a gradual move into being someone that likes to think more.
You started in 2024, and then in 2026, you ran as a candidate in the local elections in Bethnal Green. How was that for you, doing your first sort of campaigning trip, actually going through all the election process? Was that a feeling for you? Was that, I'm after doing that, like I know I can make this a lot bigger now, and I know I can challenge for things like MP by-elections. Like how was that all for you, like going through that whole process?
I'd say the experience that I collected from the 2026 Tower Hamlets council election, where I ran in Bethnal Green East, I'd say it wasn't so much campaigning experience as it was sort of emotions of going for an election. Finding two people in the local area to sign for you, doing the paperwork, getting it signed off by the nominating officer, things like that. So it was more for the administrative side. That's the experience that I gained, right? I was quite surprised with the result because considering I didn't campaign and I was more focused on national growth, which again paid off, right? I got 12 votes in the area, so that was quite surprising for me. I'd say the council election was more so first steps into how politics works rather than a full campaign experience like I am having right now in Clacton.
Yeah, I guess it showed that for that local election showed that the Forward Party and yourself, it was like a show of intent that you do want to field candidates, that you do want to challenge for elections
I'd say
in the future. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
How old are you?
I'm 19. I was born on November 11th, 2006.
He's older than me by 15 days. What a go.
15 days? Well, you were born on September 30th?
No, you're older than me, so I'm November 26th.
Oh! I counted the wrong day. My bad. Okay.
Tell us a bit about the Forward Party then, as this is like your main. This is what you campaign over. This is what you stress a lot in your TikToks. Like, what does it stand for? Who is it? What are your goals?
The Forward Party is a party that's meant to address structural issues in the United Kingdom that have been neglected by other parties. And that sounds a bit vague, but I'll give you an example, right? Mainstream parties operate under certain assumptions that they don't touch, right? Even the most sort of pro-worker parties, like the Green Party, right? That's considered the most sort of pro-people party in the mainstream right now. Even they won't touch these assumptions. One such assumption is that housing is an investment asset and must remain so, right? No party wants to quell investor demand into housing. No party wants to definancialize housing, right? That's something that I'm openly willing to address, right? The energy pricing system, for example, right? I think the Liberal Democrats have touched on this a bit with delinking gas prices and renewable prices, but I personally want a reflective pricing model rather than marginal pricing. I think another example that puts me out is my emphasis on worker ownership, right? I'm someone who says, it's not enough to live well and have a strong welfare state under, capital ownership. The workers, they need real governance and ownership of their workplaces as well, right? So I'd say what makes me different to other parties is that I tackle assumptions that are implicitly sort of accepted by other parties, right? And I wouldn't categorize myself on the political spectrum. I think that's also another unique thing. I'm openly unlabeled, and I accept principles rather than labels because labels come with historical baggage and they come with stereotypes and they cause division, right? So I'm trying to create unity. So Forward Party's main proposition, we address structural failures in the UK that have been left by other parties, such as house prices going up forever, mispriced electricity, untrue democracy because we have first past the post rather than proportional representation, and wealth is allowed to influence our elections, right? And weak wage growth and workers not having a stake in their workplace. I'd say that's what describes the Forward Party.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question. So, where you were saying there about you didn't want wealth to essentially influence elections, I'm presuming what you're talking about is essentially like political donations, because I haven't done a thorough investigation of your manifesto, but there was a bit in there that was something along the lines of like one
and
can
private
only
political
donate.
donations.
Yeah, so it's that, and then it's also like on top of that, if you're donating as a like member of the party, then that would be capped as well. Am I characterizing?
No. You're misrepresenting my platform. I don't want any private donations at all. Right? All donations should go through a public democracy voucher system where each voter gets a £4 allowance, publicly funded allowance. So this is £4 that I can pick regardless of how much money I have as a voter, to go to parties of my choice, set on a regular schedule. I can change my mind regularly, right? I want zero private money going into politics, right?
Cool.
Only a democracy voucher for each voter.
Okay. I would obviously I would be in agreement with you that I don't think the idea of private donations from anybody. Well, see, okay, I'm probably a bit more nuanced than you in the sense that like I don't feel like it's that much of an issue if Doris down the street wants to donate £50 to the Green Party. But obviously,
But
yes,
it
you
is an
need
issue.
to. How so?
Because Doris down the street, she has £15 to spare, whereas John down the street, he's struggling to feed his children, and he doesn't have the mental headspace and the financial headroom to donate £15 to the Green Party. The point of a public democracy voucher is that John and Doris, regardless of their financial situations, they have equal choice, right? It's not just about how much money a person has. It's also about whether they can make room for donations. That's why I'm fully against private donations. It should be an equal system where just as every person gets one vote, every person should get £4 to choose where that money goes.
Okay, and then as a result of that, would you suggest that you're only allowed to spend money on your campaign as a result of the donations you receive? Because obviously there's going to be people who spawn in with millions as well. So that would be the evaluation.
You probably have to restrict in-kind expenditures as well. Yes.
You'd have to restrict what? Sorry, your mic cut out for a second.
In kind, like for example, if someone donates you food or someone donates you a space to live in, you'd have to restrict that as well. We'd probably have to make it so that candidates could only. I haven't developed this area, but it is a good point, right? I've thought about it in terms of parties, that parties shouldn't own permanent assets because it creates entrenchment. But on the candidate side, you're bringing up a good point. It should probably be the case that candidates should only spend money that voters allocate to them, right? Because my model, it has 200 million per year available. Consider that in 2024, the record was about 95 million, right? So that creates enough room for existing parties to be funded as well as independents, because my democracy voucher is not only for parties, it's also for registered independents in elections.
So would you take away the membership payments from every party as well, and just use that as the public voucher system as the only form of income that these parties can make? So every membership would be free.
Yes.
Okay.
How membership interacts in terms of, I haven't figured out how membership would interact with the fact that there's democracy vouchers, because I'll tell you what it is, right? It's a matter of, okay, do we allocate membership and voting power in parties based on how much a person donates, but then it favors people who go all in rather than people who want to be nuanced? I think that's something that does have to be designed, but it's not ultra critical how it's designed at this current stage. It does have to be designed, but I think the fact that the important principle of no private money is present right now, I think that's the important part.
Okay, so where I was saying there about obviously I feel like if you were trying to implement this, which I would suggest is in theory a good idea, because it would stop this, sort of essentially like politicians being at the behest of these people that essentially just have a lot of money, and normally the people that have a lot of money are exactly. So how would you in that case go about restricting? Okay, so let's say Nigel Farage, we know he's grown up incredibly wealthy and he's been successful in, business ventures, etc. So he essentially already has, like, compared to maybe you or I, if I'm running a campaign with the money that I have, whereas Nigel Farage is running the campaign with the money that is pre-existing in his bank account, it's not going to go very well for me, is it? So how would you go about restricting that? Because wouldn't you argue that that also is giving, an unfair advantage, I guess?
Isn't it already that you have to track your expenditures in an election, regardless of whether it's your own money or the party's money, right? So this is an accounting and enforcement thing rather than, the big system design. The big system design is a democracy voucher, right? And ending private political donation. This is an enforcement matter. You could, for example, make it so that any expenditure that he documents on his returns in the election have to be matched with, money coming out of the party or money going to him from the democracy voucher system, right? It's an accounting thing.
Okay, so you would essentially want a thorough investigation of. Okay, all right.
Yeah, transparency. Yeah, the Electoral Commission can deal with the operational details, right? They know best in this matter.
There was another thing in the democracy section of your manifesto, which I kind of agreed with until I read more into it, and that was obviously the proportional representation that you've proposed. I think
I know I've got a bit of a unique model. Yeah.
The AMS system, in my opinion, I think it's the in my opinion the worst form of proportional representation. I think proportional representation in itself, in theory, is really good. In practice, proportional representation, I don't see some crazy benefits. And obviously, I'm going to link to a very, very prominent example here, which everyone knows about. Is obviously the Nazi Party in Germany rose to power primarily because of the proportional representation system. They weren't doing amazing.
The Nazi Party didn't rise because of proportional representation. You're making a historical misrepresentation. Hitler's rise was Hitler's acceleration to the power, right? That mainly came from, because I've heard this point before, and it's a historical misrepresentation, right? Hitler's rise to power, I believe it was a result of backroom deals with elites in Germany, right? Look at the Nazis' electoral records. They actually weren't that majorly popular, right? Even under their own elections that they rigged, even under free and fair elections, this narrative that the Nazis took over through proportional representation is untrue.
Do you think that there was any? So you don't think there was any element of proportional representation, given that they had a low support but still had a number of seats in Parliament, so they were able to influence through that? You don't think there was any like proportional representation element to that at all? You don't think that accelerated their rise at all?
You can't blame the rise to power based on a proportional election system, right? That would be blaming any issue of democracy on, that would be blaming any sort of downfall of a country based on its democracy, right? You're taking an edge case and you're saying, oh, look, democracy produced this bad result. Instead of looking at the backroom deals, instead of looking at the economic conditions that created Hitler, right? And so I don't think it's accurate to pin the blame of Hitler and the Nazi Party on the election system that was there.
Would you say for the AfD there is an element of proportional representation enabling them, or would you say it's the same thing, or it's other reasons?
Again, saying that proportional representation enables extreme parties is disingenuous, right? Because that's how democracy works. Proportional representation enables all parties, the ones that you say are good, the ones that you say are bad, the ones that we call extreme, the ones that others say are useless, right? At the end of the day, the will of the electorate needs to be accurately reflected, right? The rise of extreme parties isn't because of a system that allows for a reflective parliament. It's because of economic conditions. It's because of neglecting voters, right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, my thesis would be like, I'm not a particularly big fan of extremist parties, and I would like them to be nullified as much as possible. And I think also, through the proportional representation system, whilst, there were elements of other things like you've just suggested with the Nazi Party and stuff like that, I do think that it does enable them, and that's where we have a fundamental disagreement. But my other point with the AMS system was that I feel like we see a lot, I think they have it in Scotland, right, the AMS system. For their parliamentary things. It's when you vote for
they would probably have some sort of list.
Yeah,
our system is listless.
Listless, okay. But the AMS in itself it can be quite confusing for voters, especially when you're changing it from a first past the post system, which is very, very easy to understand. Obviously, whether it works or not, that's a different debate. But in terms of the difficulty of understanding that system, do you not think that would cause an issue for some voters? I mean, we had a referendum, what was it, in 2010 about changing it to an AMS system, like our elections, and the majority of the public said no. So would you not think that it would be a very different, it would be confusing for some voters?
Was the 2014 referendum regarding AMS, or was it regarding alternative votes? What was the court?
Oh, no, that's my bad. I got completely confused. That's completely my bad.
All right.
Yeah.
In terms of explaining it to the voters, my system is very complex. Sorry, my system is very simple because the voter experience doesn't change. You go to the ballot. We can also add ranked choice voting, but that's optional, right? You go to the ballot. you vote for one party, the party that you want to win, right? Whether you're voting because you like the party or you like the person, you go to the ballot, you vote for one party, all the votes are counted, 650 MPs are returned. Then we look at the national vote count, and perhaps a party deserved 100 seats, but it really got 10 because of distortions of first past the post. What my system would do, listless AMS, is that it would look at all the candidates that Party A ran in the election, and it would discard the 10 that won, because obviously they're not relevant here to adding more people to parliament. It would look at the top 90 best losers. This is best loser listless AMS. I consider it to be a unique system, right? Look at those top 90 and we add them to parliament, right? It's a very simple system to explain, right? It removes the whole having lists and party-backed deals, right? It preserves local representation because each area gets at least one MP, and it preserves proportionality, and it's simple.
Okay, so you prefer that over just simple proportional representation? You think that would be a better use of? Okay, that's fair enough. Okay.
I wanted to talk to you about public transport, my friend.
Go on.
Right, so you said in the manifesto you would like a TfL type organization to basically make sure that trains actually come on time, and essentially all this happens. Have you ever been on the EMR service?
EMR service in London? Or where's EMR?
EMR would be from, so I have to take it to go to uni because I go to uni in the Midlands. So we go from London to the Midlands. Oh my god.
EMR, East Midlands Railway.
Yes. Oh my god.
Okay.
Brother, if you can create something to get this train on time, you have my vote until I die. Every day, every single time I had an exam.
Okay.
You get to St. Cross. You get to St. Pancras, sorry. Look at the time. Delayed 30 minutes. Cool. Next train's in 30 minutes time. All right, well, I'm just going to get that one then because that one's going to be delayed. That one comes. Terminated. Literally, I must have sat there for like 3 hours. So, yeah, my question would be, if you have a plan to be solving this, how are you going to organise the structure around essentially the governing body? How do you expect to find the labour for such an event? And would that include like national prices on caps for like train journeys, no matter on like where the region is? Would that be part of it?
Okay, so summarize your question in 2 sentences. You were talking about how would it be organized, and national pricing, and how would you organize the labor for it?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I should define what I mean by TfL, right? And what TfL covers, right? As far as I know, TfL covers the buses in London as well as the underground, while certain trains are operated by National Rail. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
All right. So the TfL model that I'm proposing, it pertains particularly to buses and light rail. And the TfL model is essentially, instead of having private operators sort of run wherever they want, right? You have a central body that sets the timetable, sets the services that need to be ran, and then they do open tendering for contracts, right? And private contractors compete for those contracts, and then you run the bus services, right? I believe TfL has it, and it's the best example. I think Transport for West Midlands also exists. There may be a Transport for Manchester, because they're quite strong on transport, but don't correct me on that. I know TfWM and TfL definitely exist, right? And I think expanding it to other regions would be a good idea to make the trains more standardized, the quality of the trains the quality of buses more standardized, right? As for trains, that's more of a national thing. That's more of a national organization thing. I believe they're working towards nationalizing the trains right now. And once they're nationalized, there's obviously more control over what timetables you set, service requirements, and in terms of funding higher quality public transport. I mean, you have multiple options. You have tax, borrow, or rearrange the budget by making savings. That's the word I was looking for, right? So an example of a saving, right, is that under my housing policy, right, the private landlord sector would phase out and rent would become more affordable, right? Home ownership would increase, so it's social renting to sort of like this is private landlords, this is home ownership, this is social, like that, right? Social housing and home ownership would rise, right? And so what we'd save on that is that we currently pay housing support benefit. Housing support benefit is for people who cannot afford their rent to pay their rent, and it's paid to cover their rent, right? It's effectively a landlord subsidy, right? So if we address the housing crisis at its root, we'd save billions on these landlord subsidies, and we'd be able to allocate that to better public transport. Alternatively, there's plenty of tax rises we could do that don't affect working people. For example, equalizing capital gains tax and dividends tax to be equal to income tax, because currently passive income pays less tax than active income. We could implement a land value tax on empty land holdings. And so to answer the question concisely, TfL means a public body that sets the timetables and open contracts to private operators. Would I prefer that we nationalize transport as a whole? I would prefer that, and that would probably be the long-term goal, right? And also, as a note, the manifesto continues to evolve, right? So it may be that the second version of the manifesto, I make it so that we go for full nationalization, or pick the option between the TfL authority and full nationalization that saves the most money and provides the best service, right? So TfL covers buses and any sort of in other places, because only London has the underground, any light rail. Trains are a national thing, and they can be funded better by sort of increasing taxes on, equalizing taxes between investment and work, and also saving money on private landlord subsidies, as an example. Does that answer the question well?
Yes.
I think
In terms
you've
of the
got.
label, we can always train people. All right, don't worry.
I think you've got a really good policy in the land value tax as well. I very much support that. I mean, we currently have what is it, £275 billion worth of housing land that's currently being sat on without anything built.
Of brownfield land that's sat on.
Because it's better to just
gain
through interest. Yeah, that's ridiculous. You could build 1.4 million houses on that, which would alleviate the entire housing list. It's ridiculous that we don't have a system where you can charge the land, not what's built on the land. That's a land value tax is a very good policy. I have something else that I wanted to touch on with this. I
want to point with the land value tax thing, right? Land value tax isn't the only one of my policies that would discourage brownfield land from sitting unused, right? Another reason that brownfield land sits unused is because planning permission is scarce, right? The value of empty land that doesn't have planning permission is very low. The value of land that has planning permission is very high. My policy is to introduce by right planning permission in certain areas. So think kind of a zoning area. Like, for example, within London, right, we could make it so that, of course, excluding like public parks, we could make it so that, as long as your design is safe, you can build however much residential units you want, however tall you want, anywhere you want, as long as you own the property, right? And so that would make it so that there is no extra value in having development land, right? And so this would devalue development and thus make it cheaper to be. Am I making sense here, right? It would reduce the scarcity of planning permission and thus make the 270 billion pounds worth of brownfield land worth far less, because planning permission's everywhere, right? So that and the land value tax, it would push people to actually build.
How would you?
You had a question to ask.
No, I was going to touch on this actually. How would you manage? Because one of the main issues with housing that we have as well is the SMEs and the large housing enterprises, the ones that build the houses. We know this from years of research that they like to release housing at a very, very slow pace to keep the prices high. How would you effectively prevent that and make sure that we're getting enough housing out for the demand and making sure that the prices don't rise exponentially because they're only releasing 5 out of 100 per year, essentially? How would you go about that, like dealing with that problem? Because I think that's one of the main issues when it comes to housing as well, is these developers just not releasing the housing because they know that they can make money from just not building them. Not releasing them to the public.
Yeah, and the reason is because of the speculative value of homes, right? My plans as a whole would pretty much end the speculative value of homes and only bring their value to their true use value, right? And so, for example, I have a 1 home per person policy where I want it so that the only people that can own homes are natural persons, so no trusts, no corporations. Also, before you start sort of looking for edge cases in terms of what about charitable trusts, what about housing associations, I will write up the policy more in depth and address edge cases. Don't worry, all right? But for all intents and purposes, no corporations, no trusts, only natural persons who are permanent residents or citizens, right? So no foreign ownership as well, no Saudi billionaires buying up flats, right? And so when you remove investor demand, house prices would drop tremendously, right? There would still be a lot of demand from people who want to buy homes, actually live in or move, but the harmful demand that pushes prices up would be removed. So speculative prices go down by making it easier to build as well, right? By making it easier to build, supply would increase. You mentioned developers releasing homes slowly to make more profit, right? The profit comes from the speculative value of homes, right? And also the fact that as a developer, if you have planning permission, that's a valuable thing. Not every developer gets the planning permission.
Yeah.
Do you have an incentive to sort of beg it? You have an incentive to be a beg, and release it slowly. And so at the end of the day, right, land value tax, it will make it expensive to hold empty land that you can easily build on. And at the end of the day, if you want to stay on empty land, okay, right, another developer will happily develop their land because planning permission isn't scarce anymore. You've removed the leverage of speculative value. You've removed the leverage of scarce planning permission, and you also made a financial penalty to holding empty land. So I think those three things will push people to actually build.
Okay, your one house per person thing, is that a one house per household or one house per person? And the reason I say that is if you have you say a one house per private citizen, right? If you have a couple and they have two houses but they put one in each name, is that allowed? Because that would technically still be like two houses per one household essentially. But will that be allowed, or is that like something you're also going to deal with? Because you could get like loads of people buying up holiday homes but putting it in another family member's name to basically say that's their main house of residence, and then they're just not going to live in them. How would you deal with that?
I'm not going to deal with it by trying to determine who is and isn't a household, right? Because that would get administratively complex very quickly, right? I am acknowledging that households as a collective can own multiple homes, but with this acknowledgement, I'm making it worth nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because also, I want to introduce, because rental, I know I'm going all over the place, but it's because it's an interconnected policy, right? Rental caps may not work within trying to keep a private rental market, but when your goal is to phase out the private rental market and increase home ownership and increase the social sector to cover rental demands, right? Then rental caps are appropriate. And I do have a rental cap policy, right? So it's like, and you could also add taxes on empty homes, right? Because we can track what homes are empty, right? So if there's taxes on empty homes, and if renting out a home is very unprofitable, then what incentive does a household have to own multiple homes? Right? Like you can, but it's like it's unprofitable.
Yeah, you'll just be losing money.
Empty.
Yeah, you'll be losing money.
It's acknowledging the loophole and ensuring that it's neutralized. That's my plan to it. Because administering who is and isn't a household, that's complex, and then you get arguments and but it's not fair, and then people might get married or avoid getting married to game the system. It's like it's too peak. Just do one home per person and acknowledge, is there a loophole? Yes, but the loophole, it doesn't benefit you.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the housing thing there, and then also I wanted to ask you afterwards about reflective pricing. So, so your policies in your mind would therefore essentially make it unprofitable for you to be owning excess properties.
Yes, because property is for living.
Yeah. What if someone just has a lot of money and they're not really like that fussed about making their money directly off of, their housing investments? What if they've got, investments elsewhere and they're still, essentially being greedy and buying lots of houses just for the sake of having them? And, that's obviously going to have, are still going to have the restriction on supply. Obviously, I understand your main issue is the fact that people are buying properties just, essentially for the investment, and that's primarily the reason why people are buying properties. But if we're talking about targeting the top 1%, the top 1% are able to, they're either born with all the money, or they're able to get it from elsewhere.
It's not a financial thing, because my policy has no loopholes, right? If we did a home cap and still allowed non-person entities like trusts and corporations to buy homes, and yes, we could be concerned about the wealthy gaming it. But there is no loophole. You, as a singular person, no matter if you're a billionaire or if you're a homeless person, you can only own one home, and only if you're a permanent resident or a citizen. Those are things that we can easily verify with the land registry. You can't really have opaque ownership if each home has to be linked to a person.
Okay, but let's take Alex's example. So I have wife and 2 children, right?
Yes.
We have one home. All of a sudden, I've come across, well, probably not all of a sudden, but I've got loads of money, right?
Yes.
I'd give my daughter a home. Oh, should we just go on holiday to my daughter's home for a little bit? Oh, that'd be good. I'll just go on holiday
If your daughter's home if your daughter's home, councils are able to track how often someone is in their home, right?
Yeah.
If your daughter's home is like empty for a substantial amount of the year, right, then we could easily add a tax penalty on that, because we can see that she's not living in it.
I see. Okay, so is that what you would do then? So if people aren't directly living in the house, then you would add the tax. You would tax them.
An empty homes tax may be a good idea, and if, in your example, the daughter wants to rent out the home, right? I've got a very strict rental cap. That's like 10% of the average income in that area, not nationally, right? So if we take it nationally as an example, 10% of average income is around 3,000 a year, right? That's like only a couple hundred a month. You're not going to spend 100 or 200,000 on a home just to get a couple hundred per month, right? It doesn't make sense. And even if you do it somehow, right? Even if there's a minority of landlords that remain, right? The tenant would still be paying a very cheap price, right? And so my point isn't to ignore the loopholes. My point is essentially private landlords would, for all means and purposes, cease to exist, and those that still weasel around the system, they would have no gain from it.
Okay, so yeah, I think that was the bit that wasn't that I potentially didn't clock onto, was essentially you're
as a
asking
multi-person household, can you own multiple houses because it's one per person? You can, but there's no value in it, right? You leave it empty as a holiday home, empty home tax, right?
Yeah,
You
you're actually suggesting to properly, yeah, exactly, empty. Okay, good. Okay, reflective pricing. So basically, you quite rightly so would like people to pay for the energy that they're actually using, as opposed to just whatever the highest amount is, which obviously of course makes perfect sense. What would you say to people? So obviously, I believe it's I think 50% of our energy in the UK is now renewable. It's something around there. But then there would be 30% of it that is still your regular gas and your oil and whatever.
That sets the price all the time.
Yeah. So how big of a contraction can we expect from that? And what would you say to people who would look at your policy and go, well, actually, I'm not one of these people, by the way, but well, actually, being devil's advocate, being a bit annoying, sorry. Well, actually, we could just drill more in the North Sea and get a bunch of oil for cheaper.
So there's multiple questions there. Question number 1 that I can spot: North Sea, wouldn't that make it cheaper? Question number 2, is there any other questions there, or?
So to people who are saying about people looking at your energy policy, somebody with a different worldview might look at that and go, okay, he's clearly concerned about the prices of oil and gas, right? Why isn't he campaigning to drill in the North Sea, which would allow us to gain more access to oil and gas?
Because campaigning to drill in the North Sea doesn't change the price of oil, right? Unless the government directly drills in the North Sea and takes that North Sea oil and sells it at subsidized prices directly to consumers, there is no price benefit from drilling in the North Sea, right? Because oil is set internationally, right? what's actually going to happen, the private companies, they're going to go in the North Sea, they're going to drill the oil, they're going to sell it, we're going to buy it at the same international price that we'd buy it from like America, right? From anywhere in the world. And so, look, North Sea oil drilling doesn't reduce energy prices, right? That's just a fact because oil is internationally set. We're going to buy it at the same price either way.
Also, just to add to that, the company that is supposed to be undertaking the Rosebank and Jackdaw oil and gas drilling is Equinor, which is literally owned by the Norwegian government. So the majority of the profits made from that investment is going to go straight to Norwegian pension schemes. So once again, it is completely pointless to drill in the North Sea because it adds literally no benefit. There was literally, I don't know who did the prediction. It was some finance company. They basically said that if oil and gas prices were to be $70 a barrel, every single piece of investment, every single any money that is coming out of the oil and gas from Rosebank and Jackdaw is actually going to be costing the UK 250 million a year. So it might not even be profitable.
Yeah, because certain oil is more expensive to extract.
Yeah. So this whole North Sea drilling for cheaper energy prices is ridiculous. We pay the most for wholesale buying costs in the entirety of Europe because we're buying from so many different countries when we could just produce our own reliable energy at home. It's ridiculous that people make this assumption that, just drilling in a place which we don't even own is going to be better for us. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, what we need to do actually is expand renewable energy, right? I believe one of my policies is to make it so that just as I want residential property building to be by right, I also want renewable projects to be by right. If you own the land and you want to build wind turbines to contribute to our renewable energy supply, go ahead, build, right? No more paperwork, no more none of that, right? As long as the design is safe, it's not endangering anyone, then it should be built.
Yeah. One thing I also wanted to touch on your manifesto, the final thing that I wanted to say, is to do with your private water companies thing. I have your manifesto here. You say that
Yes.
you want to end the taxpayer-funded bailout, stop arranging emergency funding, and enforce regulations strictly against water companies. My main question to you is, why do you not go as far as saying nationalisation? Why just stricter regulations?
I believe you've missed the core argument, right? The reason I said let it fail rather than directly nationalize. If we directly nationalize Thames Water, what's going to happen? We're going to have to pay failing shareholders who've extracted money from Thames compensation, right? If Thames Water fails on its own, then we don't have to compensate, or the compensation would be far less, right? Why pay the shareholders of a failing, mismanaged business when the business can fail on its own, and then mostly what we have to deal with is creditors?
Okay. Would you also because obviously we haven't, I can't remember how many it is, but we haven't also finished building a major reservoir since 1992 or something like that, like 20, 30 years. Would you also put in your policies to effectively help with building reservoirs and other water sources to enable us to have more access?
Of course, our water infrastructure is in desperate need. It's very much in need of an upgrade, and I would support that. I'd have to look at costing it before putting it in my manifesto, because if you look carefully, my manifesto doesn't include everything ever that I believe.
Yeah.
For example, should doctors and nurses logically earn more? They should, right? But the reason I haven't put it in my manifesto is that that's a big promise to make, and you need to calculate the funding. You need to calculate where the money is going to come from, right? So would I be in favor of building more water infrastructure? I would. I just have to cost it first.
Okay.
And see where exactly that infrastructure would go.
Okay. Is there anything else in the manifesto, Joe, you wanted to say?
I'm on the bit about... Hang on. Aha. So, student loans.
Yes.
Me have them. Alex have them. You probably have them as well. Me no likey.
Yes.
Right? So, you are...
Alex, you're lagging.
Billions for the working
Your brother,
class.
you're lagging.
This...
Joe, restart you lagged a bit.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Hang on 1 second. Okay, sorry, my Wi-Fi is just being really, really stupid right now. So basically, wiping out all student loans, essentially giving people actually, some more motivation to go to university if they didn't already have the funds to do so. Brilliant stuff. How much do you reckon that is going to impact, like, the quality of education that we're able to provide? And if at all, you don't think at all?
No, because you're not changing the funding model. It would still be the same, around 9.5 thousand per year. It would still be international students paying in a lot and providing effectively a subsidy for the home students, right? If anything, it would make universities better funded because more students would want to go, right? Increasing the capacity to invest in research, right? So no, it wouldn't affect, because I'm not changing the student loans company. I'm just making it so that it's not a loan. It's a grant. You're just the universities paid the money to educate you.
Okay, sorry, I potentially misspoke. So how much would it be? How much do you suggest as a government cost then that would be? Do you think that that's a manageable amount essentially? Because I've not.
It is in the billions. It's I'd estimate perhaps 0.5% of the government budget, but that number's off the top of my head. I think using more previous figures, but I believe to calculate it, right? Look at the amount that we spend on student loans every year. Look at the amount of repayments we receive. Look at the amounts that we do not receive in repayments, or like essentially look at the amount that we receive in repayments. That's essentially the extra cost because we would be foregoing repayments, right? That's the cost, and it would be affordable for the government budget in the wider scale of things, in my opinion.
Okay, so moving on. Obviously, I think your manifesto, you have a lot of good points in there. Don't get me wrong. I just wanted to question you on some things that I thought I wanted to. Yeah, but I think it's a good manifesto. But moving on now to the big day on August the 16th, the Clacton by-election. How has that been for you so far on the campaign trail? How have you been out meeting residents?
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. I've talked to voters, I've talked to young voters, the 18 to 25. I've talked to middle-aged voters. I've talked to elderly voters, right? And have found appeal across each voter group. And it's been good so far. I've been spending many hours campaigning. Apologies, there's a bike outside. Okay. I've been spending many hours campaigning in person with my big sign. Actually, if you give me a moment, should I get the sign? Or
yeah, go for it. Go get the sign.
Let me just get the sign real quick. So as you can see, this is a massive sign. I can't fit it in the frame because it's A0, so that's like 16 times bigger than A4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it says, Clacton deserves better. Adham Alkhatip forward party, and then boring imprint, legal imprint that I have to put. And you have to put the legal imprint on your...
So are you walking around with that in Clacton?
Yes, I do walk around for many hours with that. I also hand out leaflets. I hand them out in town square. I've delivered them to to household in St. Osoph Road. I've leafleted in London Road. Tomorrow we are planning to leaflet. I'm now getting volunteers to help me with leafleting. We're probably going to go leaflet in Holland-on-Sea, right? So it's an ambitious campaign, and today I'm also uploading a lot more content. I've got 260 something. We've I think right now 266 drafts left, and I've probably uploaded already 30 odd videos, and I'm just gonna keep going uploading. And so yeah, the campaign is really picking up now.
What's most of the voters saying in Clacton? What are the main issues that you keep getting?
Main issues that I keep getting from voters?
Yeah.
I'd say antisocial behavior is a very big one that gets mentioned. I've had the fact that people don't get helped off the streets, empty shops. I've had complaints about Turkish barbershops and vape shops that people say are money laundering. Some people complaining that speeding is not being properly enforced. Illegal e-scooters and motorbikes. One concern that I've personally raised, and many residents agree with, is the fact that Clacton doesn't have a local A&E. We only have Clacton Hospital that has an urgent treatment centre that's for minor emergencies or minor treatments. One of the two. And it's only open 12 hours a day for major emergencies is 17 miles away in Colchester Hospital.
Christ.
So there's not a lot of education opportunities as well in Clacton.
Yeah.
There's not a lot for the youth to do as well. It's general concerns that you'd hear anywhere, but they are more prevalent.
Yeah, that does surprise me, and I'm assuming it would surprise a lot of other people, because all you ever hear from people on the right wing, from Nigel Farage, is that all the people in Clacton care about is immigration. And I'm saying now I'm hearing this from you is crazy that this is all the lies that you hear from them.
It's not. Of course, there's some people that you talk to them, and but also I do want to point out a trap here, right? Because also, just as you pointed that Farage always points to immigration as the biggest concern of people in Clacton, and I'm pointing to more local issues. Both of these have sampling biases, right? Farage, he is sampling his supporters, who by default will be attracted to the Reform Party due to immigration, right? I'm sampling people who are non-reform, right? So the wider picture, when you include both, is probably.
But obviously, yours is more representative of people of Clacton, because it's obviously not just a straight reform army. You're actually getting people from all backgrounds and everything.
Yeah, I'd say people do care about immigration, but also a lot of people care about local issues as well.
Yeah,
it's not just a behemoth, you know.
Yeah. So, what have been like when you've been out campaigning? What are your Clacton-centric policies that you like to speak to your constituents about?
Very good point. I've got 3 main policies. One, fight for, and I say fight for because an MP doesn't directly control funding. They effectively are lobbyists for the government, right, to represent the local area's interests. Fight for a local A&E for Clacton, because the nearest one's currently 17 miles away in Colchester Hospital. Fight to get Tendring District Council more funding to address local issues like antisocial behaviour and helping people off the streets, because a lot of people mention issues to me that I don't control. I don't control the potholes. I don't control the bin collections, right? That's your council, but I can fight for your council to get more funding and also work with the council to deliver more effectively. And finally, something that I am in control of is I would hold minimum weekly advice surgeries. I'd hold minimum weekly advice surgeries. You know,
wait, you'd go and hold a surgery in Clacton? That's unheard of. No one does that in Clacton, do they?
No one does that. Wow, it's been a long time, man.
Yeah.
I'd hold minimum weekly advice surgeries, which even by most MP standards is very frequent. I think most MPs, they hold it once, maybe twice a month. So a weekly minimum would be a high bar. And I'd also just be a visible MP in Clacton, right? I'd just be a normal person. I'd actually live in Clacton, right? And I'd be seen walking around the street. People can ask me questions at any time, right? So very simply, fight for a local A&E, fight for more local funding to the council, and be a visible MP. And obviously I have higher ambitions than this. For example, I don't know, an established medical university could make a medical campus in Clacton in collaboration with the University of Essex. We could have...
For those of you wondering why I just did this, that's my university. I go to University of Essex. I was in Clacton a couple of weeks ago, so yeah.
They interviewed me in person, man.
Me and Joe are planning to go down there in the last few days of the election. So if we see you in there, we'll definitely
tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me, because I work with a lot of independents, right?
Yeah.
Independent like journalism. So
yeah,
shout me. So I do have bigger ambitions for Clacton, right? Perhaps we could invest more in tourism. I mean, any ideas? I don't know. Maybe we could build a pier down by Jaywick to drive tourism there and renovate it. Maybe we can,
Jaywick's obviously the most deprived place. It's one of the most forgotten about places. Clacton has, I think it's over 60% of all the Clacton residents are in the bottom 20% of health. Wait 1 second. I'll actually put it up here. So more than 60% of Clacton neighbourhoods fall into the worst 20% nationally for health deprivation. 19% of working age adults in Clacton have no formal qualifications, which is 6% above the average. It's 30.6% of Clacton neighbourhoods are in the most deprived 10% of England for both employment and education and skills deprivation. So this is definitely an area which has been forgotten, and they need someone who is going to bring them that hope and bring them those opportunities, and obviously not take £5 million deals on the side. But yeah, you have a real opportunity with Clacton to show the UK that hope in these most deprived places is still possible, and this country can still function properly.
Clacton has a lot of potential, right? Like Clacton, first of all, it's very politically salient. It has a reputation, Even if it doesn't have the best reputation, it has a reputation, right? There's a lot of tourism already, and I believe Clacton has a lot of potential, in my opinion. And Jaywick could, as you said, it could make for a very good regeneration project to show that, yes, we can help the local residents and uplift their quality of life.
Yeah. You've been to Jaywick and Walton and Friends and all of these places as well?
I've been to Jaywick earlier on in the campaign. I have did a bit of door knocking there and talked to residents there when knocking on doors. I do need to go back though and leaflet the area properly. I haven't been to Walton, although that would probably be a good idea. I believe we're gonna go to Holland on Sea tomorrow to leaflet.
Yep.
So we do plan to cover wider areas.
Have you been swimming yet on the beach?
No, I haven't been swimming.
Maybe that's what you do when you win the election. You dive off the pier into the sea. It's your celebration.
I mean, perhaps if I win the election, I'll swim in the sea, right?
Yeah, you should do.
And
do that.
If you want, if you can clip this, the chat can clip this, right? If I'm to win the Clacton election, I'll go into the ocean with the suit, all right?
Okay, we're holding you to that. We're holding you to it. One thing I do want to ask you is obviously you're running against an establishment candidate, Nigel Farage, and
according to him, I'm the establishment candidate and he's the people.
Yeah. He is the people, the person that takes money from the wealthy and criminals. Yes, of course, he represents everyone. There's also Count Binface. Now, should it be a case that Count Binface gets is 7 points away from Farage and you get 8% of the vote, will that be an issue for you with splitting the vote, or is your main sort of premise here is to promote yourself, or is it to get rid of Farage? Like how would you feel about that? Would that be an issue, or would that be a win for you? Like how would you feel about it?
I mean, I don't think it would be an issue, because at the end of the day, you have to realize, right, the non-Farage vote is not a coherent vote.
Yeah.
Okay? Look at 2024 Clacton parliamentary election, general election. It was around 46% Farage, and the other 50-something% was, I think 25 was Conservative, 25 was left-wing parties, right? And also other small parties. And so to imagine that the left-wing vote, or like the right-wing vote, or like the anti-Farage or pro-Farage vote, or I mean pro-Farage obviously one coherent vote, but to imagine the anti-Farage vote as one coherent vote is disingenuous.
Yeah.
Right? Because how would you know that the people that voted for me would have voted for Binface and wouldn't have just stayed home if I wasn't available as a candidate? Yeah. You'll never know.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I don't believe I'm splitting the vote. Count Binface serves a certain group. You know, he serves sort of people who want to protest vote for a novelty candidate. I serve a certain group. I serve people who want to vote for a serious alternative.
Okay. What do you think the chances are, based on your experience with the Clacton voters, of Nigel Farage losing this election? Are there a lot of them that are thinking, I voted for him in 24, I don't want to vote for him now? How is that coming across? Because I'm genuinely interested from someone who's on the ground campaigning. How is the feeling in Clacton towards him? Is there still a lot of support, or can you see this actually being the end of him in Parliament?
There is still a lot of there are people that support him, right? And the people that support him will be more loud, right? Like, for example, if I pass by a pub, right, or a club that's full of Nigel voters, and I go by with my sign, they're all gonna shout Nigel, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
But are there people that have voted for Farage before and now have a more open mind? I would say that probably there are, right? And so chances of Nigel losing, this is a different question to if I win. It's chances of Nigel losing. There is a chance of loss. Is it a high chance? It's not. I think that's the verdict I'll leave on it.
Okay.
The chance exists, but it's not necessarily a high chance, really, in my opinion.
But I think obviously your manifesto is a lot better than Reform UK's manifesto. I'll put it that way. I've read both of them. You actually have policies. He doesn't, or doesn't have coherent policies anyway.
And actually, funnily enough, I have Nigel Farage's leaflet that he's handing out. Let me get it.
Okay.
And compare it to my leaflet, just so you know who's actually offering something for Clacton.
Yeah, go for it.
So this is Farage. You can see it signed. You can see his face. QR code.
Obviously signed by him. Clearly signed by him.
Clearly personally signed all thousands of them, right? So this is his thing, right? This is my thing, right? These are them, right?
Yeah.
Let me read to you word for word, bar for bar, what each one says.
Okay.
Right? My promises to Clacton. Headline, always accountable to you. Subtext, it has been an honour to serve as your MP and defend your interests in Parliament. I mean, that's not really...
He barely ever turns up to Parliament, doesn't he, anyway?
I mean, he doesn't turn up to Parliament, he doesn't turn up to Clacton.
Yeah.
And also, this isn't phrased like it's a promise, it's more so phrased as congratulating them and congratulating himself. Point number 2, headline 2. Taking on Westminster for you. I mean, you are Westminster, but it's alright. Subtext, this contest is a fight between the people of Clacton and the entire political establishment.
Oh, so they should vote for you then? Because you're up against the political establishment.
I didn't say it.
Yeah, you're being endorsed by Nigel.
Wow, bro. Wow. I don't know what to say. Me personally, I reject his endorsement because I don't like him. But it's quite interesting. And finally, headline 3, fixing broken Britain for you. Subtext, I have spent 30 years fighting for the British people, our sovereignty, and our values. I mean, I don't think sovereignty puts food on the table for the people of Jaywick, but it's fine.
Yeah, I think Brexit took food off the table for people in Jaywick, and as well as other things that he's campaigned for. Like, okay, sure, whatever. I mean,
he's made this country poorer.
Yeah, literally. I mean, our GDP is what, between 4 and 6% less than what it would have been if we hadn't left the EU. Like, and then he's delivering that as a success, and
it
people
depends on how you measure it, but like we are poorer,
yeah, much poorer, yeah.
Now comparing that to my one, okay. Apply for a local emergency department. The nearest one's currently 17 miles away. Apply for better funding for tendering district council. Tackle local issues like antisocial behaviour. Hold weekly advice surgeons and be a visible MP. So, if we were to summarise Farage's points, he says he's always accountable to you. He says he's taking on Westminster. He says he's fixing broken Britain for you. I'm saying that I'm going to fight to get you an A&E, fight to get more funding, and I'm going to be visible.
One of them's got policies on, the other one doesn't.
It's not about has he said something good and I've said something bad. It's about he said nothing.
Yeah.
What? So you can see I didn't lie about anything. You can screenshot this.
It's also who is more likely to actually deliver on their promises. Is it Nigel Farage, who's going to be delved into corporate interests, who's going to be literally fighting to keep his political life alive, or is it going to be you who actually will fight for the constituency? It will be your main focus, and you will actually deliver on your promises. Like, this is what the voters need to understand in Clacton, is that Nigel Farage is not going to look out for them, and judging by the fact that he's never in Clacton, I can't understand why they still don't see that.
I'd say it's that I wouldn't write these people off, though, right? I wouldn't write people in Clacton off, right? Even if they support Farage. Because at the end of the day, everyone has a political view. That political view is shaped by their environment and their upbringing, right? And so perhaps some of these people just need an honest conversation. Perhaps they need to see someone actually delivering. I mean, perhaps if I were to get elected and I actually do a good job, perhaps some Nigel voters would think, actually, what did Nigel do? If this guy is so present as an MP, what was Nigel doing? Right? So sometimes you have to show them with better action rather than words. And so sometimes you have to talk them out of it. Sometimes you have to actually show that you are better.
Yeah, exactly. One of my final questions is, should you win this by-election? Obviously, you've said that you are a uni student at Queen Mary. You're also, I didn't realise that you're not even studying politics. You're doing engineering, which is crazy. Yeah, that is.
I'm going to my second year.
Okay, so we're in the same year, but that's interesting to me.
Same year, wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Oh yeah, because you're only 15 days older than me.
Yeah. No, but I thought that's crazy that you're balancing this uni degree and you have an extensive knowledge of politics and how the UK works. And I think I thought that you would have been studying politics, but that's really cool to see that you're doing engineering, which is obviously a very, very important sector of the country that we need to revitalise. But my question to me is,
bring back manufacturing, high level manufacturing like pharmacy and aerospace.
Yeah,
need to double down on that. Yeah.
So if you were to win, how would you balance being an MP and being a uni student? Will you? How are you? Because obviously, being an MP, you're going to have to be in Clacton once a week. You're going to have to be doing PMQs.
More than once a week. Remember, I said minimum.
Yeah. Sorry, more than once a week. You're going to have to be doing PMQs, visiting ministers to help with all of your constituents' needs, whilst obviously going to lectures, doing your assignments, doing your exams. How is that? Are you prepared to take that on? Like, how is that? How are you feeling about that?
I'm very prepared to take that on, and I've already thought about this. When it comes to university, you have flexibility. There are certain things that you have to attend. There's certain things that you don't have to attend. And regardless of your level of attendance, there's knowledge that you must know, right? So obviously on the knowledge end, I still have to remain educated on engineering, right? Some lectures you do not have to attend, right? So obviously being an MP would supersede that, definitely, right? Some things you do have to attend, right? So again, obviously I would try to organize that around my MP schedule rather than the other way around, right? And I would, maintain both being an MP full time. That's the number one priority, right? And also maintaining my university education, right? Because I feel like it also gives credibility that I'm actually trying to gain more knowledge and gain actual qualifications, right? Rather than just running away from everything to be an MP. Because if I do that, I'm a career politician.
Yeah.
Right?
Because that was what I was going to say as well.
I think we can balance it.
If you were to become an MP at the age of 19, how would you deal with people saying you've never had a job, you've never had life experience?
I have had a job.
Yeah. What job did you have? But obviously, I'm not criticizing this. I'm just saying, like, there'll be people who've said like you went straight into politics.
As a housekeeping assistant. I've worked before as a housekeeping assistant in Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Birmingham. Okay. And I think there's a difference. It depends on how you define career politician. If you define career politician as someone who genuinely just their main career has been politics, then you could apply that label. If you define career politician as someone who does nothing but politics, because there's a difference, right? I think you have to look at context. Some people, if you take away politics from their life, they genuinely have no achievements. All they did was study politics GCSE, politics A-level, politics at university, local council candidate.
You're listing my life so far. I did politics at GCSE, A-level, and now university.
Okay, I'm not insulting you.
Okay? Yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah. I'm describing the career politician type.
Yeah.
Right? And then eventually becoming a parliamentarian with their formal education being essentially just politics and their experience being in politics, right?
Yeah.
Whereas me, if you take away politics from me, what am I? I've worked as a housekeeping assistant before. That's a normal job, right? I'm studying engineering. I could become an engineer. I could become a doctor as well by graduate entry medicine. And so it's like, I don't think the career politician label applies to me because I could live a normal life outside of politics.
Yeah.
Politics is something that I am invested into, right? But it's not necessarily like I wasn't raised into politics. You know what I mean? That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And also, you're a man of the people, and you'll fight for them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adham, for coming on today. Genuinely, having spoken to you now, you know a lot about politics, about this country. You have some great ideas.
There's always room for improvement.
Exactly.
There's always room to improve and gain more knowledge. Right? I recognize that.
Yeah. No, but your policies you've got some great policies in there. Land value tax. You know, I think when you explained.
And thank you for asking difficult questions.
That's all right. No, yeah, that's we had some things that we thought, okay, I'd just like to counter that and see what you say. But yeah, you're very well informed in politics stuff, and I wish you all the best in the Clacton by-election. Vote for Adham if you want someone who's going to be for you, who is going to work for you.
The 3 policies: fight for local A&E, fight for better funding for tendering district council, hold weekly advice surgeries. I'd hold more if I could, obviously, but weekly is still quite high standards. And be a visible MP. Local A&E, local funding, visible MP, very simple.
And your slogan is Clacton deserves better, right?
Clacton deserves better. I mean, how much bigger can I make it? I think it's quite big what the slogan is.
You need to get a giant one on the pier or something so that everyone can see it all the time.
Man, I don't think I have the budget for that, unfortunately. I think it's already quite big. Yeah, if I get a 2A0, I could get like a 1-1 like this. Like literally my whole wingspan.
Oh, just one final question. Do you see your sign in other people's houses yet? Have you seen a few of them?
No, because unlike Farage, I don't produce signs for people to put in their window. I mean, if someone wants to take one of these and put it on their window, I wouldn't mind. But you have to realize, I don't have a party machine behind me. Like, I've spent, like £160 on campaign materials. And then I've spent money on sort of accommodation and food, like the cheapest accommodation I could find. And so it's like, I'm not like Farage. I can't afford to give people free yard signs, you know?
Yeah, okay. That's fine. But anyway, as I was saying, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great, and I really like you and your policies as well.
I appreciate it.
I wish you the best of luck in the Clacton by-election. I will try and come down to Clacton. I think I'm going to, maybe on the day of the election. We might come and we'll do some streaming and some interviews with you, some other candidates, some other people. And yeah, we'll go and see how everything's going. But aside from that, good luck, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me on, Alex. Right. I do also hope that this podcast does well, right? And I hope that you do well as well. And I really appreciate this opportunity. And when you're in Clacton, right? If you're in Clacton, give me a shout. I'll be there.
Will do. Thank you very much.